Hey there, everybody. Thank you for joining us today on 13 Plus. Joining me in studio today is a hometown hero. He's the lead singer of the band Michigander, started right here in our very state. He's the voice of hit singles you've heard on the radio like 90s, Letdown, and Misery, with a discography garnering over 110 million streams across all platforms. From house shows in Grand Rapids to concerts at Red Rocks and Lollapalooza, Jason Singer joins me now. Jason, thank you so much for coming by. Well, you got quite the career.
I feel cool now.
Well, you are very cool. So thank you for joining us. I wanted to give you the opportunity to just introduce yourself to people that maybe have never seen you.
I'm Michigander. I'm Jason. I make music as Michigander. I was born in Kalamazoo. I was born in Grand Rapids, lived in Kalamazoo. Band started in West Michigan, and I've lived all over the state. And this feels like home, though.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah, you kept it in the name, so the name obviously meant something in through there. So I wanted to obviously touch on that in particular, is, you know, the birth of this band and, you know, what it kind of talked about. I remember reading in an interview that you said you kind of went to a lot of house shows and everything when you were younger and started to be like, well, you could do this as like a job, or like this is something you could actually do. Can you talk about, you know, the inception and your musical journey?
Yeah, totally. I mean, the first couple bands I remember seeing live, like in coffee shops and house shows, and being kind of confused because I'm like, are these actual people doing their job? And then realizing that, oh, that's something I could do. And so I just kind of went for it. And I guess 10 years later, this is almost 10 years of Michigander. Actually, like next week, 10 years of Michigander, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
A decade in, and I feel like we're just getting started in a lot of ways.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know one of the things too is the last time you were here in town at Tip Top, you kind of created, you put out the statement that this band is one big inside joke. So are we allowed into the inside joke right
everybody's
now?
allowed in the inside joke. I feel like it's just an inside joke.
Yeah.
And the more people, the merrier.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in terms of, you know, the starting here of you know, creating this band and really starting to kind of get your ground going, it didn't start in the 90s, but it starts with 90s, you know, with kind of your single there and how you kind of, you know, wanted to shop that around. And that was kind of really what put you on the map. And it was kind of, you know, your first major go at it. And you pretty much, you know, hit radios and you were on radio stations and such. So talk about, you know, 90s and, you know, really now starting to go out as a name, you know, the name of Michigander.
Totally. That was the first song, 2016, that I put out. And I felt like I got really lucky and really fortunate that people connected with it for some reason. I still don't know why, because it's not the best recording, it's not the best song, but for some reason people still want to hear it and people still like it. I'm just grateful and honored that anyone cares at all. But yeah.
Yeah, and what was that like too, to kind of have that song? I mean, your first real go at it, I mean, you guys, you know, worked hard and got it out there, but it gained traction pretty quick. Like that's, you know, that's not a normal thing for a lot of bands to kind of hit it, you know, not as if you hit it like, of course, you know, majorly big.
Yeah, it wasn't didn't change my life. I guess I did in some ways, like, but like it wasn't, I don't know, I think I put it out at like the right time where like Spotify and everything just kind of like gave it their blessing, and people, and like a lot of local, you know, WIC and all the other local like radio stations really supported me and had me around. And I think without them and without all those people just kind of rallying behind it, I don't know if it would still be going where it is. Yeah.
No, it's interesting. It's a cool one to start with because, you know, as things have developed, it has become kind of that cult classic of a song. But it is really the first one, you know, that it went, and it's popular enough to know, which is great. And so, you know, talking about that same thing, right, is, you know, these early recordings and stuff and kind of getting things together. Obviously, your first EP, Midland, you know, releasing in 2018. I mean, what did that mark, you know, for you? I mean, that was really, you know, onto the scene now, had a couple singles, you know, to kind of really establish yourself. You were already kind of getting plays in Spotify, you know, you were kind of winning the digital space as things were starting to come up, and that was giving you traction. You know, talk about, you know, those early songs and Midland.
Yeah, like Midland was the first EP. It was the first time I was like, I need to get all these songs together. I crowdfunded it. People helped me make it and pay for it, and that was really special. And I didn't really feel like I didn't feel ready for it until I did it. And now, with like the debut record coming out in February, like 10 years in, I'm putting out the first full-length album, and I feel like that is also, like, I didn't feel ready till now. I'm glad I waited this long. I'm glad I waited. I feel like the name of the game for all musicians, especially me, is just being patient and resting and just in the waiting of it all. And so, yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah, and it's a good point. I wanted to expand on it a little more too, because it is rather unorthodox in a sense that, you know, with how much traction you've garnered, you know, in the digital space, in the streaming space, and everything like that. I mean, all signs for most musicians sort of pointed, I need a record out immediately. But you've taken, again, that patient process of probably an EP, usually about like every 2 or 3 years, you know, at this point and everything. So as a musician, I mean, that's got to be an interesting balance to walk where, you know, you were, I think, what, you've had 4 EPs total, I think?
4 EPs,
Yeah, 4. I'm like, at one point, was it ever just like, oh man, can I pull off another one, or did it just always feel right?
I knew that I felt like 4 was like the proper number, and and then I felt like once I was done making that last EP, I felt like now I felt ready to make a full length record, and I had the resources to do it, and like the right producer to work with, and the right team to make it, and so now that it's coming out, that's pretty cool. It's right behind me. That is neat. I am very excited for people to hear the whole thing. I mean, it's like, I feel like I've worked my whole life for this moment, and now that it's ready, it feels really special.
So after Midland, you released Where Do We Go From Here in about 2019. That was the first time I saw you personally. Cool. And yeah, I mean, that, at least at the time, kind of felt like things were shaping up, you know, really, and things kind of started taking. You guys obviously tour a lot. I mean, do you want to talk about, you know, being a touring band and, you know, these EPs, even though you only had, you know, a couple songs on an EP, and at the time, probably an album's worth of music with Midland and Where Do We Go From Here, and then a couple extra singles, but you guys are on the road a lot. I mean, what's it been like to be kind of a, as you've described before, a road warrior type band?
Yeah, I feel like we are road warriors. Like that's where, like, Michigander started as a live band, and I still feel like that is where we shine, like me and the guys, and especially now because I've had the same group of guys playing these live shows with me for like the last 5-6 years, maybe actually more now, and it's been very cool to play the live show because that's like where you connect with the human, you know, like we're in the same room together having a conversation or playing in front of you and getting to have that reaction. Like I've seen you in the crowd at our show. I've seen you in photos in the crowd at our shows, but it's just so special to like be in the room with other humans and like kind of we're all there for like music and songs. Yeah, it's cool.
What are some of the locations that maybe people watching are, you know, because you've got the name and you've obviously got the presence around you, but like, what are some of those smaller shows and everything that you've played that kind of really strike?
Grand Rapids?
Yeah, sure. You can say Grand Rapids or West Michigan.
We'll say Grand Rapids. I've played plenty of house shows in like East Grand Rapids, like just in that whole little area. I used to play open mic nights at Elk Brewing.
Cool.
I've played at like, I think it was called Lightfast or Stovetop.
Right.
Stovetop now. Founders open mic nights. Any open mic night I've probably played at.
Yeah.
Here in Grand Rapids. Yeah.
And all that work is what really got you to this point. And so, as you were, you know, a live band, live shows, you know, really focusing on that presence. Pandemic hits.
Yeah.
All of a sudden shuts down. We actually spoke during the pandemic when I was still in college. You know, talking about how that affected, you know, the music industry and such. You know, what did that do for the trajectory as a band, you know, when all of a sudden this live band that's got, you know, great momentum going through there, all of a sudden really tapers off? Not to say you lost any momentum, but just that your trajectory was for sure changed. I mean, how was that, you know, pandemic era?
It was hard. I mean, like it hit pretty hard. But in hindsight, it was like, it was nice to have like the recentering and like take a step back and kind of analyze everything how it is. And make it, and then re-entering the world, it kind of felt like we made it more sustainable and more, we made it definitely more sustainable coming back after COVID. And I just felt like a lot of those decisions that we had to make during COVID have kind of carried over, and like trying not to be on the road too much, and kind of taking breaks when you need to, because that's like, in this business, people always say like you have to strike while the iron's hot, and if you slow down, it's like catastrophic, and that is sadly kind of true. So, like find the moments for it to rest, and we learned how to rest during COVID, and just kind of like we were out of control of the situation, and so yeah, that was hard. But re-entering the world, I felt like it was better than ever.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you re-entered obviously with another EP that you released during that time. Everything Will Be Okay Eventually. That was the one right in through there. So kind of a different change in the sound, a lot more of kind of reflective of the time.
Yeah.
You know, did that EP really kind of help guide, and also did it also speak to the ability to create EPs as, you know, consistently as you did, to be able to kind of make something that was just right for that type of era, where a lot of the songs are much more about togetherness and, you know, again, everything will be okay, you know, that kind of style.
Yeah.
You know, what did that EP speak for you during the pandemic era?
I was really scared to write songs during the pandemic because I didn't want them to be super reflective, like on the nose of the time, but because I was hearing a lot of music that was like using the word lockdown in the lyrics, and I'm like, that's cheesy. I'm going to not do that. And so
Sure.
I feel like if you didn't know it was written during the pandemic, you would know. You wouldn't know. And so it does kind of like, it is the most cheerful EP probably out of all of them. And so that's kind of funny.
Right.
Because it was written during the saddest times. And so maybe that's just how I got through it. Yeah.
Yeah, just able to cope, but you can actually put something out,
Yes.
you know, in terms of coping, which is great. I know one of the things too about that, you know, about that record, that Lala performance. What was it like to sing, you know, Let Down to just this unbelievable crowd who's singing back to you?
Yeah, it was crazy. I'll never forget it. It was like one of the coolest shows biggest show, I think like one of the biggest shows we ever played, for like 10,000 people. It was crazy. I mean, you could see on the footage, it's just like, unforgettable. I sometimes forget it happened.
Right, because it's just become such a part of the psyche, you know, and everything that it keeps you going. I mean, and that obviously is a climax, you know, in your entire career, because for as much as you had taken your time, adapted to a pandemic, you know, and such like, I mean, you were playing Lollapalooza, and people were singing back to you. I mean, what was that? Because obviously that was different from your house shows, and, you know, different from those smaller venues. I mean, what did it feel like to stand on a stage like that and seriously hear people singing your words back to you?
So surreal. Like, I'll never forget it. Like, I walked off stage and cried. Like, it was really special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, just something to bring up, obviously, in that era, because, you know, talk about perseverance. I mean, that was it, you know, to be able to kind of hit that stage. And so, you know, coming into 2022, a lot of things happened, you know, around 2022.
Yeah.
You know, you broke your leg.
Hi everybody, it's me, Michigander, here in the California wilderness, and I slipped and broke my leg. It's miserable. The fire department's on their way. Please like and subscribe.
You know, music, especially at the time, because I believe you were actively writing "It Will Never Be the Same."
Yeah.
And then like completely redid it, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So we wrote it. I wrote it and then recorded it, and then decided to change it. So it's the same song, just done differently. And a couple different songs actually, but and so we recorded it one way, and then we're like, we're gonna do it a different way, change how we do things, which is always hard, you know. And so we went to California and recorded the record with Tony Hoffer at like a legendary studio called Sunset Sound, where Prince and the Beach Boys and Fleetwood Mac worked. Miley Cyrus was in the other room while we were working on our thing, and it was really cool. It was really cool to be in like that environment, and you can like hear the room in the song, which is really special.
Yeah, and obviously marked a time of collaborations too. Now you didn't get Miley Cyrus because she was in the other
Yes,
room,
that's
but
true.
you started working with like, you know, Manchester Orchestra, and you kind of started to expand your coalition of musicians and
Totally.
such. You know, what was that like to kind of branch out finally into this, you know, collaborative space, especially with a band like Manchester Orchestra, who obviously, you know, they can speak for themselves.
They're one of my
in
favorite
terms-
bands, and
right.
it was crazy to. It was really surreal to like go to their house and work with them and write a song and record a song. I played drums on that song, which I'm not a drummer, but they made me sound good, and it was really special. Like that whole era felt like a really big growth period for me, and I think that set me up really well to make like the full length album. Yeah.
Yeah, which obviously, you know, let's get right into it. Obviously, you know, with 4 EPs down at that time, you know, a career's worth of changes and development, you know, here we are, self-titled, you know, record, and it's still crazy to say a full-length, you know, LP to see that. I mean, you know, just take it away in terms of talking about it. I mean, it's exciting, you know, it's an exciting time for your career, which is about to reach a decade's worth of you know, recorded music.
It feels weird to like be finally having this out, and like, I mean, I've worked on this since 2022. and so I have it finally done, and coming out early next year is. I feel like it's like the next step. Like, I feel like the EPs were my college years, and this is now my career. And yeah, this is. I'm really excited for it to be in the world.
Yeah, and I think an interesting component about this too, and what some people may not know, is obviously, you know, some people will hear that your band name is, of course, Michigander. You don't live here anymore, but to be able to go for a self-titled and really kind of let that name speak for itself, I mean, how important was that to still keep that name so relevant regardless of where you were? You know, what does it mean to have the band be Michigander, you know, full of other Michigan talent, you know, and such like that? Because obviously some of them are still playing in bands, you know, through here with, you know, Young Ritual, you know, for example. What's the name mean to you, especially now as it's going to be, you know, right at the, you know, center of the album?
Yeah, I mean, you could never change where you're from. Like, I have Michigan tattooed on my arm, the outline of the state, but it's just like, that's where I'm from. I'll always be from here. I will live here again when I'm older. Like, and Grand Rapids is kind of getting cool. Like, I don't know, like, walking around and being around the last couple of days has been really nice. And yeah, I love Michigan. It's always home. Yeah, and home is where the heart is.
Exactly. Remember that, everyone at home. Yeah, I'm asking too, you know, it's kind of on the same lines, but, you know, reflecting of where you are, you know, in your artistry and in your career, you know, what are the songs on this, you know, record really saying about your career and really showing the development that you've had? You know, what do you see in this record and in the track list?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like it's the first time I have made something and not worried about how we're going to pull it off live. And so that is kind of just like kind of the statement for the whole thing is like, just do whatever you want, just make it most authentic to yourself. And this feels like the most authentic, real version of myself. Like, I wasn't really worried about like a hit single or something. I was just like, I want to just make what I want to make. And that's what this is.
Yeah, and with that being said too, being able to not have to produce for something as a single, you know, you have that momentum to kind of give you the baseline and such. A lot of your EPs had a very similar, they would kind of have a cohesive element to them. You're now almost, you know, doubling the track list on most of that. Is there a challenge to kind of fit in, especially, I mean, with a first record, right, where you have all this material and all these songs over all this era? Was it difficult to pick that track list and really finalize that, or did it just, like, with that patience, did it just kind of feel right?
I wrote 40 songs and narrowed it down to 12. And that just 12 that I was most excited about, but also that fit together, because I wanted it to flow good, and so I think it did. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's being made, so something went right.
Something went right. Yeah.
What is your sound that you would define to a lot of people that haven't, you know, heard you said? Obviously a live band, but you know.
Yeah, really hard soft rock. That's what I'll say.
That's a good one. One of the things I wanted to ask specifically is you've talked about, you know, home is where the heart is and such, and you know that this band, I mean, is the name Michigander. So you've co-opted a large community and are, you know, representing on the road and in these other cities and such. Why could this journey have only started in Michigan for you?
That's a good question. I feel like my path was very, every little part of it led me to where I'm at today. Every little person along the way and every show and every decision kind of got me to where I'm at now. And I don't know if I'd be here without those moments and those people. And so I think Michigan is where it all started. I mean, I lived here for my whole life until like 3 years ago. And every area almost, like Tri-Cities, Midlands, Saginaw, Grand Rapids, everywhere, Detroit, Kalamazoo. And so I kind of feel like I have the badge of honor of kind of like realizing that people are just all the same, and you know, humans we all kind of want the same thing, and try to like capture that feeling and emotion in a song is what I try to do.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, you live in Nashville now.
I do live in Nashville.
You stayed here for, you know, years and years of your life, and then basically we're in a position that you could launch off and go to Nashville with actually connections and with a clear drive, you know, for musicians, because that's obviously, you know, basically the mecca of you know musicians and such. So how was that journey to be able to realize, like, yeah, I'm ready to take this jump and ready to leave my hometown, you know, for basically a place that I will already be established in and ready to go?
I feel like there's never the right time to make big decisions in life, whether that be like having kids. I don't have kids. Or about like buying a house, getting married, all that stuff, moving. It's just when it happens, you just know when it's the right time. And it's just like having the courage to just follow that moment. And in hindsight, 3 years in or whatever, I'm so glad I moved. And like, this will always be home and these are always my people. But to be around what is happening there in Nashville for musicians and music is really inspired me and kind of keeps me going. And so that's been really cool.
And as you reach kind of the footnote of, you know, basically this first era, you know, out of these EPs and then, you know, getting into Nashville and everything like that, what was the message that when you were leaving Michigan, I mean, did you look back and hope that you had changed, you know, the sphere of things and kind of allowed new voices to come to the front? I mean, what impact did you hope you had on leaving? Because I got to imagine, you know, with obviously being so intertwined with the community here and the music scene, to leave it, you would kind of hope it was in a better space than maybe you left it, or that, you know, some new voices were coming up.
I think it's good to like try to leave things better than you find it, but I also am like a firm believer in like not worrying about those types of things. It's out of my control. And like I think that it's good to like not worry about like your legacy or like whatever, because you'll be dead and it doesn't matter that much. So I hope things are going good, and I hope things are like better than where I was. But I'm just glad that I'm like I found like the best path for me, and I don't know if I should worry too much about other things that are outside of my control. Yeah, that was kind of a sad answer, maybe.
No, I get that. I was just going to say that when you do your songs, they're a little more upbeat and kind of hide the explicit language of it doesn't matter, but our legacy will be dead. It's more like it's okay to just kind of take it as it comes. So just if you needed an example of what these songs were, you know, that is it. It's those types of things, but just maybe a little more upbeat, and you can kind of smile along.
Yeah.
And the last thing, it was funny that you said kind of the badge of honor, because that's kind of how I wrote it in and such. But as you bring the name around, you know, around the country and everything with your badge of honor, you know, representing us on the road. I mean, what do you hope that the name Michigander represents in terms of the music, you know, industry? Obviously, I'm not trying to put pressure on, but just saying when you know, use a name like that and really represent, I mean, a state, you know, as you're traveling the country, I mean, what does that say about us, and what do you hope that says about us back home? And
I feel like people here are pretty nice for the most part, and I think we're pretty nice guys. And wherever we go, we're told that we're nice guys by venue staff. It's also cool to like just see random Michiganders in other states that just pop into the show because they saw the name. They might not know anything about the band, but they feel a kinship to what we're doing, and that's cool.
Yeah. That Midwest, you know, Midwest kindness and everything runs.
Midwest charm, baby.
Thank you, Jason, for joining us. It was a great conversation. You know, we can't wait to hear how things develop. If there was anything else about the record that you wanted to talk about,
I don't know. The album comes out on February 7th, and I hope people like it.